AEW news. So I think folks may have noticed that the Blackpool Combat Club has been kind of MIA on AEW television as of recently. So, in a recent interview, Bryan Danielson said that the Blackpool Combat Club's, well, they have a book club apparently, and it basically fell apart in part due to Jon Moxley in Japan for NJPW, and Wheeler Yuta has had an injury. So, there's a number of reasons why they're currently not in their uh, strongest faction position right now. Um, so Bryan Danielson provided an update on the club within the Blackpool Combat Club. He previously stated that the club has a book club, which is kind of funny, that helped him. Him, Wheeler Yuta, Moxley, and the founder of the group, William Regal, stay connected. He has now provided an update on the book club, telling Mr. Barrasso of Sports Illustrated in a recent interview that the current state of the club is up in the air as Jon Moxley is spending time more in Japan as the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, and Wheeler Yuta being injured. That has meant that they are not at as many AEW events. As for staying connected in other ways, Danielson has stated that he hates looking at his cell phone and is not a good texter. I mean, I feel I kind of got that vibe with this whole vegan Earth persona in WWE. Yeah, dork. And so basically, he says, and I quote, "I don't know what the next book is going to be for the book club. It's kind of fallen apart since Mox won the IWGP Championship in New Japan. He hasn't been at a lot of AEW shows. Wheeler's been hurt, so he hasn't been at a lot of AEW shows, and I'm a horrible texter. I hate looking at my phone, so I'm really bad at responding to texts. The last 6 weeks, we haven't been as deep into it as we were." Danielson did note that Jon Moxley recently recommended a book to him, so the spirit of the club is still alive, at least. Fightful Select recently reported that Wheeler Yuta was dealing with concussion issues. At this time, a timetable for his return is not now. So, I know, David, you kind of mentioned, like, you didn't know that Wheeler Yuta was injured, or at least to that extent.
Yeah,
Why he
well,
was
I
off
knew
the
he,
shelf.
yeah, like I figured something happened, but then like they never did anything. With his belt because he's the Ring of Honor Peer Champion.
And he's still the champion, right? They didn't
Huh.
they didn't vacate it.
Yeah, like Curtis Axel hasn't lost in the Royal Rumble.
Right. Right, exactly. And,
Yeah.
and there were plenty of people who have been injured. Edge, Adam Copeland, I believe he vacated
You
his
about to get
title, right?
fined.
When he broke his leg.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for one, that's kind of interesting how they determine who gets vacated and who doesn't get vacated. But I guess that's a whole nother segment. But I mean, the Blackpool Combat Club, as it is right now, and we think about where Daniel Bryan is right now, I feel like he's kind of in limbo when it comes to feuds. And we know that he's talked about retirement on the horizon within the next year or two, although he has mentioned that you never say never, and he doesn't want to put a date on it because, I mean, again, I feel like he looked at Sting and he's like, yeah, that could be me. And Wheeler Yuta being injured and he's having concussion issues. I mean, like, where do you guys see the Blackpool Combat Club in AEW fitting right now? Or at least, like, because currently Daniel Bryan is doing his thing, and Jon Moxley is currently... So he mentioned that he's more in Japan, but Jon Moxley has been on AEW television. He just has the NJPW championship, right? Like, he hasn't missed that many televised pay-per-views and shows.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't believe that for a second, but they're not the only three in Blackpool Combat Club, are they? Weren't there other people?
Claudio.
No. Claudio.
Right, exactly.
Bryan.
So where's it?
Mox.
So isn't Claudio Castagnoli still on the roster?
Yeah.
He's
But
still
I guess
doing stuff.
maybe they just haven't figured out that they should just make them a tag team or something.
So okay, so William Regal was originally kind of like their...
Yeah. And what did that be? Tampering? because Regal has a high job.
Right. So who's their kind of like leader now since Regal's gone?
I guess it'd be Moxley, wouldn't it?
Ox.
Yeah, but it hasn't been like defined, right, on television. They haven't really addressed it.
No, I mean Mox and Danielson have had matches, but other than that, no.
Right, but besides that, like, has there been like a like from a story perspective, like a not a microscope, but yeah, kind of more of like okay, we're talking about Blackpool Combat Club as a group. What are we doing? Like, what's next? They've never have they addressed that since they've had these issues? No, they like that's again why I have sometimes issues with Tony Khan's booking. But so okay, so what do you guys think about, Blackpool Combat Club um and its history and its legacy, and where do you feel like it goes from here, given the current situation with Daniel Bryan kind of still being there, and he's involved in things like, Team AEW versus the Elite, and you have Wheeler Yuta out with a concussion, and you have Jon Moxley basically doing side quests in Japan. Like, how do you feel about the Blackpool Combat Club now, up to now, as a faction?
I don't think they're one of those factions that have to be together all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I think.
yeah, like I guess that's the easiest way to put it. Like, I mean, other than like on camera, like pulling up together every once in a while, like I guess that's cool. But like, I feel like they're one of those groups that could just like do their own thing, and it's more of like a badge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the
they don't have to
glam
be.
tag.
They don't have to be in story at all times. I think that's
Yeah.
where you're getting confused. Why they're still a group, or if they're still not a group or whatever. Because I mean, they have so many big segments now that they're still a thing, but they're just not on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like the way that the thing that I do enjoy, what about WWE, is when you're in a faction, the the feuds, like you are addressed and acknowledged that you're in a faction or you're part of a faction. Like if you're Legado del Fantasma or if you're LWO, like you're in a group, and when they talk about you or when you're in an interview, you address or acknowledge like people in your team, or you acknowledge that you're part of a team. You know what I mean? Like when they're doing these stories, that common thread of the faction is woven through all of their stories. If you're on SmackDown or Raw, with Blackpool Combat Club, and again, like it also just comes to like certain storytelling things within AEW, and this is my issue sometimes because you guys know when there's like a roster member or someone like, oh, I haven't seen this person like 6 months, and then they just show up and they have like a couple of matches and they're in a feud or something, and then they drop off again. And then they come back up in like 3 or 4 months. And there's like no acknowledgement, or like there isn't like that story thing. You know what I mean? Like why
Yeah.
that's why, like, for me, like when I see like I don't know, Brian Keith or somebody like that, or whatever. Like seeing somebody that has like is on the roster and they have like a string of matches and then they feud and then they drop off, and there's like no acknowledgement of it. Like that's my issue with it. Sometimes there's like no acknowledgement of them leaving or coming back or whatever.
Yeah.
Like why should I invest in these people when they could just easily drop off at the drop of a dime? You know what I mean? Like that's my frustration with some of these people on AEW. And I feel like at least with WWE, when it comes to storytelling, and again, I feel like that, like when I try to take a step back from like what do I like about pro wrestling? What makes me invested in pro wrestling? Why do I keep coming back to it and all that kind of stuff? It is the storytelling. You could have a great, wonderful match and all that kind of stuff, but if it's insulated and within a vacuum, and once that match is done, nothing else is connected to it, I don't care as much. You know what I mean? Like if Chris told me like, hey, we have an AEW pay-per-view, I know it's gonna be a banger. But I have no inclination to tune into Dynamite or Collision because the pay-per-view might not necessarily tie into Dynamite or Collision because sometimes those people just kind of fuck off and they're just gone or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Well, if you
it's kind
watched
of
it, you would keep up with the storylines, now wouldn't you?
yes, and again, I watched the YouTube clips, but you have to be honest with me here and say like there has been that issue in the past and still right
That's true,
now. You
but
know?
I feel like there have been strides made to make storylines kind of more apparent, and that there's continuation, or they'll acknowledge something that might have happened even a couple years ago. Like they do the AEW timeline stuff, and I'm guessing that's kind of their way for you to kind of connect with the specific wrestler, even if it's like not some major storyline, but they'll like mention something they did in like another promotion or something like that. They kind of like, which is the story, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be like, you know, Kane's baby daddy having a baby or some shit like that, but like that, you know, here's their history as a pro wrestler, and this is what they've done in the past. So I think
And
it
that's
depends.
yeah. Finish
It
finish with that.
depends on how you define what a wrestling storyline is. I think there's a lot of room there to we can poke and prod and pick apart like what makes a good storyline, but I would say that there is story there. It's just not. It might not be the flavor that you're looking for, if that makes sense.
I'll half agree with it because I still do think that there are certain things that they again it comes down to like wrestlers that they try to like push and then I feel like there's no follow through even if they lose. It feels like, you know, here's a good example of like how what a good thing you can do. Like AJ Styles, for example, with Cody Rhodes, he had a match in Backlash, and they gave their whole like explanation about, you know, they're two Georgia boys. They're, you know, they have that their background with each other. He wrestled his father. Like you already have like, you know, built-in story into that, and he lost. And that was it, right? And then it like, oh look, he just moved on to Logan Paul. And then on this past SmackDown and this past SmackDown as of May or June 2nd, they went back to the AJ Styles feud. So they had because they knew like, oh, we have to have this show in Saudi Arabia, and now we're going back into this AJ Styles feud. And again, they pulled from, you know, the Mark Henry storyline of the retirement, which was like Academy Award stuff, but also honestly the AJ Styles thing and also Cody Rhodes like looking like he was crying. Like I also kind of believe that he was gonna retire too. And,
Ah,
and
gotcha.
and
Got
I
your
know I'm a
ass,
fucking goober. I'm a goober when it comes to
Mark.
that. But yeah, I'm a mark. Because I texted Dave, was like, hey, do you think like he's retiring? Because like when I was like watching this, I'm like, oh, this seems for real. So I fell into it, even though like they used the same tactic like 13 years ago or whatever it was. But again, really well done. Like he was like, oh, you know, the GM was like, you have to get in the back of the line. You can't get your championship shot
There's the
again.
ranking
And
system.
yeah, exactly. He came back. He did his like speech about, you know, I want to be a phenomenal father. And then, you know, he did that whole attacked. He did the whole, you know, he did his finisher on the stairs. I thought he was gonna die on that shit. I'm like, why are you doing that? But again, like trying to tie it into it. Sometimes I just feel like with AEW, like right now, I don't understand. I mean, again, I guess based on storyline for Will Ospreay, he won, you know, the tournament or whatever to fight uh for
Word.
the AEW, yes, for the AEW championship. But again, like I'm just trying to follow AEW's rules. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to rankings and when it comes to immediate shows like Forbidden Door, hasn't traditionally Forbidden Door been like AEW wrestlers and then like Japanese wrestlers like New Japan, All Japan? Like why is the top title just between two AEW wrestlers? You know what I mean? So
I feel like,
that,
well, here's what I think is the reasoning why they did that was because that adds the you don't know who's gonna win kind of element to it. Because if you have some kind of New Japan guy, you think the New Japan guy is gonna win an AEW like the big AEW title? Probably not.
I'll say yes, because like the example is Jon Moxley has the New Japan Championship. So that's like that gives you a reason to think that
well, here's the reason why I think he won it is to create is more like a marketing thing for Western audiences. So that was the agreement, I'm assuming. I don't think AEW wants to do the opposite in like the Japanese market, or I don't believe that's something that they're necessarily interested in. I would imagine. I mean, like the cross promotion stuff is the partnership or what they're getting out of it, but I don't think a New Japan star winning an AEW, like the big AEW belt, would do anything for AEW specifically. You know what I mean? But for New Japan, yeah, like you give Jon Moxley the big belt. They're like more Westerners probably want to watch New Japan now. Maybe like, oh, that's interesting. So
I guess that's fair. I mean, like
Will Ospreay's New Japan.
Technically,
Really about it. Like
He
I mean,
was.
he's new to AEW, but I think that's enough of being a recognizable face.
Yeah.
And
I
for
mean,
New
like he
Japan to be
technically
happy.
was, yeah.
Last indoor he was.
What do you feel about? I mean, I guess in terms of rankings, but again, okay. So rankings.
Everybody's on top. Everybody's the best.
Yeah. So rankings is the whole thing. I just think you should just get rid of the freaking rankings, like CM Punk said. And Will Ospreay just won that championship. Is that being defended at Forbidden Door? Because his title was basically meant to be defended at a pay-per-view like Forbidden Door. Is
champ versus champ.
We'll see. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess TBD because it's still a couple of weeks away. But
it might get booked the night before.
Honestly, you're right. Because like when I'm making those freaking graphics, and I'm like, there's 8 matches. Oh, there's actually 10. And then when I'm ready to publish, I ask Chris. He's like, oh yeah, there's a Thunder Rosa match. And I'm like, what do you mean there's a Thunder Rosa match? It's like the pre-show. I'm like, you know what? Fuck that shit. I'm not counting pre-show matches because I can't fit it in the goddamn graphic. There's 10 matches and that's it. But
yes, go with
that's a whole other conversation. Because honestly, you know what? I'll say this. Because right now for AEW, they used to not have a pay-per-view every month, but now they do. So you don't need to stuff your pay-per-view with 10 or 12 matches. Like that is a lot to ask for a person. I get it. You probably get your bang for your buck, but you start like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock Eastern time, and then people are sitting up until like 1 in the fucking.
Well,
like that's all. See, exactly. You yawn, and it's 8:40. So I'm just saying, it's a lot.
It's because you're still paying for them. I mean, you're still paying $50 or whatever per pay-per-view. So they probably are just like, well, we got to stack this shit. If you got 5 or 6 matches and you're paying $50, I mean, I don't know. Especially in today's landscape, maybe like whenever streaming wasn't a thing. When people were still paying for pay-per-views, they could get away with it, but they're probably just trying to add the value to spend the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we were initially talking about Blackpool Combat Club, and it kind of devolved into this other segment. But
Cuckold Club.
Where do you see Blackpool Combat Club going from here? Do you feel like it still exists as a entity?
Of course.
Yeah.
They never said it was gone.
Okay, so where do you see like Daniel Bryan in his current situation? Like, where does he fit in the current AEW card? I know he did the whole Team AEW thing. Is he kind of like a floater right now? Like, basically where they need him, they're gonna kind of put him in a specific.
Maybe he comes back with the Blackpool Combat Club.
Well, not only that, but he's been kind of like characterized as the, like an AEW rah-rah poster boy kind of guy, like the guy behind the scenes, mentor type, like he's Mr. AEW.
Committee.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's
right.
a discipline committee. That should be his new faction. That'd be actually entertaining. The discipline committee.
Damn.
Kind of like Oh my God, what's the in WWE that right to censor, right? That's what it was called.
Yeah.
That's what he should be. Discipline committee should be like right to censor.
Oh,
Like if there's something
big ass
dirty or
tyrant.
nasty, he has to like go on the camera and like find people.
Two girls kissing.
Yeah.
He
So.
comes out, dudes no.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah, I mean, I know Wheeler Yuta's out with a concussion. He has concussion issues, but I mean, Jon Moxley, you still have Danielson, you still have Castagnoli.
Monster Choli.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like for them, it's just like we're part of a group, but you don't have to necessarily be tied in as a group in name to any specific story. I guess that's fine. You know, like I guess I'm kind of conditioned to see it a certain way. But for me personally, I do like some kind of, you know, reward, I guess. You know what I mean, for like following a specific group. So
A free T-shirt.
yeah, a free. I mean,
Toaster.
At least, you know. Come on, give me a free
Signed
T-shirt.
6x4.
So that's enough of that. Let's dive into